A lot of people wrote off UFC 258 before the event even happened, myself included. However, it brought us a lot of great fights, great finishes, and great storylines, including 2 up-and-coming women's flyweight prospects going at it, and 2 former teammates fighting for the welterweight strap. Let's see what happened. The co-main event, like I mentioned, had 2 up-and-coming flyweight prospects, Maycee Barber and Alexa Grasso, with Grasso taking the decision win. This is 2 of the top rising stars at 125. Grasso obviously just moving up after her last fight, after an up-and-down career at strawweight, and Maycee Barber, the future as she calls herself, suffering that gruesome knee injury in her last bout. And this was the classic matchup of you have the quick speed of Alexa Grasso taking on the power and the wild shots of Maycee Barber. And just by looking at these 2 women, you could tell Maycee Barber had a lot more muscle. You could tell that Grasso had moved up. She was not a stocky, skinnier, but it had no problem in the clinch. You're looking at these 2, you think Maycee Barber controls the clinch the entire time, but it was really just Alexa controlling that. Barber came out aggressive like she likes to, light on her feet, and she was doing, she was like feinting from the middle of the octagon, like throwing these double jabs. At first I thought she was just trying to get the distance, but she was doing it the whole fight, so I don't know, maybe that she knew something we don't know, who knows. But they came out swinging. And this is the issue Barber's had in her short career so far. She'll land a few shots, and because she's got that power behind her, she gets excited, and then, like as the broadcast mentioned a lot, she gets loopy with those punches. And that's okay against lower competition, but someone like Alexa Grasso, you can't do that. She gets loopy on that third to complete the combo, and Alexa's firing straight up the middle and landing like no issues whatsoever. And Barber with that chaotic style, Alexa was super calm. And this is really interesting too, is everyone thinks of Alexa Grasso as a striker. The few times it got on the ground, she was slick with her jiu-jitsu. She looked like Gilbert Burns in the submission underground, to be honest. The pressure was great at the end by Maycee, but it was just too little too late. If she fought like that the entire fight, she might have got Grasso out of there. I don't know, those punches look hard. They look to be hurting her a little bit. But yeah, absolutely fantastic win for Alexa Grasso. Really vaults her into the top 10 at 125. A lot of good fights for her. Maycee, only 22 years old. Tough split decision, or unanimous decision, I should say. She has a great future ahead of her still. And of course, the welterweight championship on the line in our main event. Kamaru Usman, Gilbert Burns. Of course, these 2 former teammates down in Florida. Usman actually moved up to Trevor Whitman's place in Colorado to train. The head coach that used to coach them both said, I ain't touching this one. Not with a 10-foot pole. Got out of there. And Usman won this fight by TKO early in the 3rd round. I don't even know where to begin with this fight. I mean, if you had to describe this fight in one word, it would be jab. Usman's jab, as Joe Rogan called it, piston-like jab, is ridiculous. How accurate, how fast, how powerful. But if we're going to start this at the start, usually the good place to begin. Big question was, how will the wrestling of Kamaru Usman deal with Burns' ridiculous ground skills? Literally didn't even matter, didn't impact anything because it was basically a standout fight. Burns came out super aggressive, which is interesting because Kamaru's style is usually that. He gets the guys to fight at his pace, how he wants to do it. He dictates it. And of course, naturally, like everyone expected, Gilbert dropped Kamaru Usman early with a punch, caught him behind the ear. Was he that hurt? Maybe. He looked a little wobbled for a bit, but it was the classic behind the ear equilibrium got you messed up. And that entire first round, I mean, it was really Gilbert's. There was this weird instance where Gilbert was laying on his back and Kamaru was throwing these weird body shots and trying to get him. He didn't want to go down. He didn't want him back up. It was interesting, but Burns took the first round. Second round, opposite. Usman started establishing that jab and cracked him with a nasty right hand. And of course, Burns out of it for basically the entire second half of that round. Didn't look too good. And then here comes the third round. Usman switched southpaw, which is not something you see him do too often. A little bit, but not too often. And just jabbed him down and got him out of there. And it was tough to watch the end. There wasn't a lot of hate between these 2 guys, but there was some competitive spirit, I guess you can call it. And of course, Burns bawling his eyes out after, and UFC switched to those 8 cameras the NFL was doing. And he had that shot of Burns crying, consoled by his teammates, and Usman just kneeling there, just staring at him. I gotta say, Usman gets a lot of crap and doesn't get a lot of credit, but man, he's an intense guy, and he's a hell of a fighter. Broke George GSP's record for most wins at welterweight. And honestly, if you just take the fight out of it, the most interesting thing is he called out Jorge Masvidal after, a guy who just dominated. And I guess his reasoning was, Jorge talks a lot of crap saying, 6 days and I broke your nose. Imagine what I could do with a full camp. Let's be real. That fight, of course, Usman and Masvidal, 1.3 million pay-per-view buys. That's a lot of money when you're the champion. There's not really a contender out there at welterweight right now that you could say deserves the title shot. I mean, you could argue Leon Edwards, but he hasn't fought in 10 million years. Partially not his fault. I don't know. Does anyone really want to see that? I don't think it's going to be any different, to be honest. Usman's just going to have to lay on him for 25 minutes and out-wrestle him, which he can. He doesn't want Masvidal on the feet, but hey, you never know. That jab looks so sweet tonight. It's possible. So yeah, this was a great fight. There we have it, folks. UFC 258. Not the first pay-per-view of the year, but first title fight of the year in the books. Looking ahead, we have 5 title fights in the next 2 pay-per-views. That's ridiculous. The March card is crazy. Dominic Cruz and Joseph Benavidez are both on the prelims. Excuse me? We'll take it. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you next time.